Heat were missing three starters and key reserves, and we're facing a tough Sacramento Kings team. And just as we have seen for years, Eric Spoelstra got the most out of who was left on the roster, building a 20-point lead, answering the Kings' late comeback, and stealing a crucial win. The Heat have now won 8 of their last 10 and are on a 4-game win streak. We break down all the action, who stepped up, and answer your questions on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. I'm Wes Goldberg, editor at allyoucanheat.com. Joining me as always, longtime NBA reporter, it's David Ramil. However you're tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Recording this late Monday night after the Heat beat the Kings 121-110. A little bit of a scare in the end after the Kings cut Miami's 20-point lead to 2. But Jaime Jaquez Jr. and Bam Adebayo made big shots and put the Kings away in the last couple of minutes. I don't know how they keep doing this, David. Here's who was out for the Heat tonight. No Jimmy Butler, no Tyler Herro, Terry Rozier, Nikola Jovic, Thomas Bryant, Orlando Robinson, Josh Richardson. All those guys were out. The Heat basically played with 7 players in this one. DeLon Wright, Duncan Robinson, Jaime Jaquez, Caleb Martin, and Bam Adebayo started. Kevin Love and Haywood Highsmith were the two guys off the bench. A couple of minutes each for Cole Swider and Alondas Williams, the two-way guys. They got in for a little bit of run, but we're going to hand out credit cookies and take a look at the East standings in a little bit. But David, how did the Heat? How did they do it tonight? How did they pull this one off?
Incredible effort. I really think that's ultimately what it came down to. Like, it was they got off to a good start with no real point guard on the floor. Like, DeLon Wright plays the guard position, but he's a little bit more of a tweener in that sense. Like, he's not really, he can handle the ball a little bit, but they weren't using him to initiate offense. So there was a lot of Bam and Duncan pick and roll early on, a lot of those actions early in the first quarter, and they were able to build a little bit of a lead, but the Kings came back because they've got, a top 15-ish player in Domantas Sabonis, a guy who's notched another triple-double, his 20th triple-double of the season. An incredible feat for him. One of 7 players in NBA history to be able to log 20-plus triple-doubles in a single season. And they were able to mount their comeback. They got some incredible shooting for Keegan Murray, who maintains the most ridiculous grudge against the Miami Heat I've ever seen. Like, he is just unstoppable against Miami.
33, yeah, he's the best, literally the best player in the NBA against the Miami Heat. 33 points the first time these teams met. 28 tonight, 10 of 14, 6 of 7 from three-point range, and that was worse than what he did the first time these teams played in Miami. I mean, I don't know what they did to him.
I don't know how they insulted him. Look, so Sacramento mounts their comeback, and from there it's pretty even. Miami maintains a slim lead in the second quarter, going into halftime. In the third quarter, they blow things completely open, build a 20-point lead. They're able to carry that through the start of the fourth, and then Murray, Sabonis, Fox, Malik Monk, everybody starts getting into it in the fourth quarter. Kevin Herter, who had been cold most of the game and was cold late in the game, he starts catching fire. He starts having Duncan-esque threes on the move, and they cut that lead, as you said, to 2. And Miami responds as well as you could imagine. I think they looked absolutely gassed as Sacramento mounted that comeback. They didn't really have much answer to what Sacramento was able to do offensively or defensively. They just couldn't keep up with them. And I thought, you and I were talking right before we started recording this. It seemed like Miami was poised to lose the game after having built that huge lead. And yet they responded with an incredible effort. Like, their 30th starting lineup. And you could see in stretches here and there where there was a lack of communication, a lack of familiarity between the guys that were on the floor. DeLon Wright playing his first minutes in a Heat uniform, and he's called on to start in another clutch game for the Heat. And he had some big moments on the stretch. He knocks down 2 3-pointers late in the game as Miami's building that 20-point lead. Like, just incredible to see Miami find their way and establish this incredible defense down the stretch. Like, they had that big dunk from Caleb Martin. That was a monster performance from him overall. big stops from Bam Adebayo.
Bam Adebayo had his second huge block in crunch time in as many games.
So
in
good.
this
That
one.
steal on Sabonis. Like they missed a shot, and I think the Heat were up 2, maybe 4 at that point, and Sabonis clears the rebound, adding to his total for the night. And he's looking to inbound. He's looking to push the ball up, and he's looking to pass it to somebody. He doesn't notice Bam behind him, who pokes the ball free, forces the turnover, gets the steal, and then ignites another Miami offensive possession there. It was incredible to see that defensive Bam.
It was a 21-5 run from Sacramento that got them back into the game. And then the Heat, and so at that point, it's 110 to 108. So Miami nursing a 2-point lead there. From that point on, the Heat end the game on a 13-2 run. Defense powering the offense in a lot of ways. You mentioned the steals. There was a couple of different steals during that period. The block, the turnovers that lead to the fast breaks, Caleb Martin's dunk that you mentioned, and all of these different things. And then Jaime Jaquez Jr. with the 2 biggest baskets of the game. First one with like 3.5 minutes or 3 minutes to go. He gets Kevin Herter left side of the floor on a post up, little turnaround jumper. Just, barbecue chicken at that point. He could have done the too small celebration, but he's too cool for that. And then he moves on to the Heat go up at that point 4. So they go from the 2-point lead to a 4-point lead. And then on the next possession, gets Sabonis on the right side of the floor in isolation. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, if Sabonis is on you, then who's on Bam? And I see Trey Lyles on Bam on the other side of the floor. And I'm thinking, Jaime, get it to that guy. Swing pass. Let's get it to Bam. Old school triangle. Like, just get it to the other side of the floor and let Bam go to work on Trey Lyles. And Jaime's like, I got this. Don't worry about it. He pump fakes on Sabonis, drives baseline. Sabonis manages to get back in front of it. And then an up and under move. It was Kobe-like. And I don't even use that in hyperbole. It was right out of the Kobe Bryant playbook, the one that Jaime Jaquez had studied when he as a preteen, and that puts the Heat up at that point by 6. Bam hits a turnaround jumper with 1:20 left, and that basically ices the game 116 to 110. Caleb Martin's dunk only ices it a little bit more, and no beam is lit in Sacramento. You could be upset about the blowing of the lead if you're a Heat fan, but I don't think you can, considering how shorthanded this team is on the road in a very good team in Sacramento. And David, the thing that I keep going back to is when I ask how do the Heat keep doing this, what we're talking about, the winners of this game were the starting lineup. Miami's bench, I mentioned Alondes Williams and Cole Swider. They tried to get those two-way guys in. They got played off the floor right away, and Miami blew their first lead when that happened, before they blew their lead in the second half. But this starting lineup, the 30th starting lineup the Heat have played all year, they have not logged a single minute together, this lineup, all season long, obviously, because it was the first time we saw DeLon Wright, against the Sacramento Kings, a healthy Kings team, a completely healthy Kings team, with their starting 5 that has logged the 4th most minutes in the league of any lineup in the NBA, and has been a strength of theirs, right? They are one of the best net rating starting 5s in the NBA, and this mismatched skeleton crew of a starting lineup somehow outplayed Sacramento's starting lineup. This is not a bad Sacramento Kings team. This is a legitimately good Kings team that has kind of established themselves as the 5th team in the Western Conference in the standings. Yep. And the Heat just went in there and got the win. And I know the Kings were on the second night of a back-to-back.
Yes, I was going to just point that out.
I would have taken a healthy roster on the second night of a back-to-back over what the Heat were using. I think any team would have done that.
But, this is just... I like that Locked On Kings host Matt George tweeted this out, because it's rare that you see is outside of South Florida, maybe a few national people kind of pointing this out. But the fact that Eric Spoelstra is able to do so much with so little, we've seen the sickness, the psychosis of Eric Spoelstra, where he gets in that laboratory and he uses all of his tools as a mad scientist to kind of put all these weird lineups together. And it's just the consistency of trying to get everybody to stay ready, to understand they're going to have a moment at some point, whether it's a weird game like today in the middle of the season due to suspension and injury, or in the playoffs. If you're on the bench, you're still a contributor. Like, we joke about it, and the way he talks about those guys in the locker room, right? That it's a disservice to them or disrespectful to them because they've earned the place to be here, etc. Like all the platitudes that we hear Eric Spoelstra say, but he keeps all these guys ready. Like tonight, it was Kevin Love. I mean, Kevin Love was basically out of the league a couple of years ago. Like Cleveland cast him off like he was nothing. He joins Miami. Last year, he struggled for most of his tenure with Miami. He had a few bright spots here and there. He just had an incredible resurgence. Here he is having 19 points against the Kings. Like, just incredible moves from him. Like, he was just a phenomenal performer. And it's just all these players stepping up on a shorthanded roster, only playing really, as you pointed out, 7 players. Somehow all of them maximized their time out on the floor, and they really had a fantastic performance. It might be one of Miami's, if not Miami's, best win of the season, just because of the fact that they had no business winning the game, and somehow they pulled it off.
It's one of those wins that happen when you're playing well, right? They don't win. They don't win this game during the 7-game losing streak, right? They lose this game.
No. The vibes are so much different.
Right. When the vibes are good and you've won 7 of your last 9 going into this game, and now 8 of your last 10. These are the kinds of games that winning teams are able to pull off, and it's a meaningful game when we talk about the standings. I know it wasn't against an Eastern Conference team, but Miami now in 6th place in the East. We're going to get to the standings watch in a little bit. We're also going to hand out credit cookies. We're going to do all that next here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by Nissan Motors. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? You ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Well, our friends over at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. 2024 Nissan Rogue, as I've mentioned before, I drive it. I love it. It's the perfect combination for city drives or going on the next great escape. It's got so many different features. You'll love that. It's got a nice kick to it. It's a good, quick car. It's got just the right size, so comfortable. To me, I think it's quite luxurious. It's a really, really great car. You'll love it too. But if you're looking for something a little bit bigger, then try the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder. Seats up to 8. It's got an expansive cargo capacity and advanced available 4x4 capability. It's got 284 horsepower for that extra kick. And then there's also the 2024 Nissan Armada. It will change what you expect from a full-size SUV. It's a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first-class luxury and style. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada. Go find your next big adventure. Go shop NissanUSA.com.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and your favorite podcast app. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Programming note real quick. Apologies for how late it was on the audio feeds to get the podcast out on Monday. We mentioned a couple times going into the week that we're switching over back-end podcast hosting platforms. So that was the reason for the delay on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Odyssey, however you get the podcast there. It was up on YouTube as it normally is. No interactions with YouTube with our hosting platform. But also going forward, I was made aware from the RSS feed. If you subscribe to our audio podcast via RSS feed, we're no longer using that megaphone feed. We're using a new platform called Simplecast. You're going to have to use their RSS feed if that's the way that you consume the podcast. So thanks for your patience as you bear with us as we're changing it. All of this will end up in being a better product for you people. But just we appreciate the patience while we're kind of making that exchange for now. But David, it's another Heat win. It means it's time for the tastiest segment of Locked On Heat. It is time to get in the kitchen and hand out some credit cookies. Who gets cookies for tonight's win?
Well, considering only 7 real rotation players were on the floor,
can I make a recommendation on what kind of cookies we're handing out?
Yes,
you know where I'm going with this, right?
No, I don't, actually.
So my favorite cookie, maybe in the whole world,
is Sacramento oatmeal.
It's the one
cookie.
at Golden One Center, the oatmeal raisin cookie at Golden One Center. And I am sitting here on my couch watching the game from home, obviously.
Thinking about the cookie.
My mouth watering. Just like, should I have just made the trip? Should I have made the trip for a couple of oatmeal raisin cookies? And I didn't. So here's what I did, David. I found trail mix with raisins in it. It was just like peanuts, almonds, and raisins, and so I ate that. And it wasn't
substitute.
It was not the same, I have to say. So because the Heat won, I feel like we can at least spiritually give out some of those delicious golden
You,
ones.
you have waxed poetic about those cookies for a long time. For people who don't know about Wes's background, living in Miami now, but before that, he was living out in the Bay Area. He used to cover games in Sacramento because, well, it was tough to cover the Warriors when they had 85 different reporters based there during the big run there, and then during the dynasty of the Warriors era. And you have talked about those oatmeal cookies for as long as I can remember at the Golden One Center. What was it called before? The Sleep Train Center or something like that?
Sleep Train.
It was Sleep Train,
yeah,
right?
But it was the other arena. It was the old.
It
arena.
was a different arena.
So it was always the new one in downtown Sacramento was always the Golden One Center. But yeah, started this podcast actually in California, and then then I started covering the Warriors and blah blah blah. Now we're back. But we were handing out the Golden One Center oatmeal raisin cookies. We have 10 of them. Who's getting them?
I've got 6 players getting them. Of the 7 rotation players, I've got 6 of them getting cookies. I've got 2 for Bam Adebayo, who had a fantastic performance, flirting with a triple-double, really strong, showing in the fourth quarter, as we mentioned before. But I also have 1 for Duncan Robinson, who had a career high, 11 assists. That's right, 11 assists for him. I've also got 1 for Haywood Highsmith, who stepped up off the bench, hit some big threes, knocked down his first, as I've mentioned before, and then felt much more comfortable, hit some big shots, had some nice defensive possessions as well. Caleb Martin came up big. I think he had some really nice shots early on. Again, a great defensive possessions throughout the game, so he gets 2. I've got 2 to Jaime Jaquez. Really incredibly good game for him. The moves in the low post, the turnaround jumpers, great defensive possessions, incredible effort, knocked down a 3, something he struggled with as of late. And Kevin Love gets 2 cookies as well. So that's a total of 10 cookies for 6 players.
We need to find a cookie to give to Eric Spoelstra.
We
rarely give Spo the cookies, but I loved Eric Spoelstra's game plan tonight. It was so simple. It was, hey, Bam, we know you take these matchups with Sabonis personally, or any elite center. We know you take these personally. We know you're going to go at them. Let's get you going to the basket. We actually think we have an advantage here with pick and roll, whether it's Duncan Robinson running pick and roll with you, or Caleb Martin, who was handling the ball a lot in this game, or even DeLon Wright for spurts. We think we can run this. And they did it, and it was a big reason why Miami was able to get out into it was a 65-62 halftime lead, and a big reason for that was because of how dominant what Bam was. As great as Sabonis was offensively, and he was great offensively, there are things he does there are deficiencies in his game defensively that obviously Bam doesn't have, but offensively Bam can exploit. And I thought they did that. I loved the game plan. And off of that, they were able to get Kevin Love in the post, and he was able to go to work. Jaime Jaquez Jr. was able to get into the post, and he was able to get to work. Haywood Highsmith was able to cut baseline off of those things. Everything revolved around. And I just loved how simple it was. And Eric Spoelstra does deserve, I don't know if it's a credit cookie, if we're only saving the cookies for the players, and Spo would be the first one to hand his credit cookie to another player. But he at least deserves a shout out for the game plan tonight.
Right, he would downplay exactly what he did tonight.
It's not about scheme. It's just about effort and all those guys in the locker room.
The guys in that locker room, they're the ones that should get all the oatmeal cookies, and I happen to agree with them. He also put Kevin Love and Bam out on the floor, right? Like,
the two
shared,
big lineup.
Shared the floor. Yeah, it was interesting. We haven't seen that, I think, for most of the season, maybe in spurts here and there,
but not for that long of a stretch in that big of a moment. That was very and it was almost like the NBA Finals where they went with Kevin Love and Bam against like Aaron Gordon
and it worked.
Nikola Jokic.
And it worked.
Yeah, I mean they kind of had to because they didn't have many guys available, but it did work.
Yeah, I think Love was able to do an okay job of at least dropping and putting up a big obstacle for Domantas Sabonis. Like Sabonis wasn't aggressive and looking to score. He was mostly getting everybody else going and pulling down boards and stuff like that. He is a potent offensive player, but he wasn't really looking to score as much as he was looking to get guys like Murray and everybody else going. So Love just did a really good job of shading him, and I think really just putting a body on him.
But you could argue too that that's partly because of Miami's defense sort of taking the easy stuff away, right? And they went to zone quite a bit, the 3-2 zone they went to quite a bit. And Sabonis, there was moments in this game where he's kind of like looking around a little lost, like, all right, who's cutting, who's coming around my screen, what's happening, who's going to get open for me?
They were giving you the mid-range completely. They were dropping. Yeah, and letting him have that kind of 15 to 10 foot space and be like, all right, if you're going to hit him from there, go ahead and do so. But we dare you to do it, and it worked because he
And he
really
didn't.
wasn't
I thought
impressive.
he kind of dropped the ball there, right? He only took 8
Yeah,
shots, only got to the line for
hit a
4 free throw
three,
attempts, hit a 3.
but
So he
was
beat him on one
unwilling to
possession.
shoot the mid range shots. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was bizarre.
it was a little weird, but
We should point out Bam taking a 3-pointer too. I know you tweeted about it.
yes,
It was nice, and the broadcast crew saying that he might be getting more comfortable taking those shots. I'm not sure I necessarily agree. We talked about it following the All-Star game where he hits a 3-pointer. Obviously, that's just the All-Star game, but he looked comfortable. Like it was bringing the ball up court in transition, semi-transition, and I think Jaquez passed the ball to Bam as he was just going up court, and he gets to the 3-point line, lets it fly immediately, like early in the shot clock. We've seen Tyler take those shots, but that's Tyler Herro, not Bam Adebayo. And it looked comfortable. Unfortunately, it clanked. It just rimmed right
Don't
out.
care.
And
I don't care.
Yeah.
I really don't care. I love that he took it. I don't care that he missed it. I love that he took it, and especially early in the clock. He's taken 4 or 5 of those all season, just like in rhythm, mid shot clock, early in the shot clock, pull up 3-point or catch and shoot 3-pointers in this respect. And I love that he took it, and I think he should keep taking one of them a game. I'm fine with even wasting a possession on one of them a game, just so the defense knows that, all right, he's going to take it. At least he'll take it. Even if the defense will say, we'll live with it. I just want them to know.
With his passing, like eventually they'll close out if he keeps doing it consistently. And with his passing, which was on point tonight, like he was creating offense for so many other players. Like that is just to draw an extra defender out of the painted area, especially if you let Tyler or Jimmy go to work in there. Like it could be so beneficial to Miami's offense.
Duncan Robinson was awesome. I thought his playmaking was huge, especially on a night with no Tyler Herro, no Terry Rozier. DeLon Wright still sort of easing his way in terms of being like a point guard. He's not ready to run the offense. That much was made clear. So they put the ball in Duncan Robinson's hands, and Bam and Kevin Love and Caleb Martin. It was those guys. Jaime Jaquez a lot too. Those were the guys running the offense, the guys who have been around with the knowledge of the team. But I loved what Duncan did with the assists. I know that his shot wasn't falling, and the broadcast said something like he was 1 for 7. I didn't even pay attention. Like I honestly didn't even look. I wasn't like really watching. He was 1 of 11. 0 for 6 overall. I noticed the threes that were missing, but I thought his floor game was just really good. And I didn't look. You're gonna miss shots. It's fine. But now he's got the diversified kind of repertoire here to make it a positive impact on the game, a meaningful help. The guy went 1 for 11 tonight and got a credit cookie. Right. That would never have happened in the past for Duncan Robinson, right? So big shout out to him. Jaime Jaquez Jr., we need to talk about him a little bit more. Is he back? We're going to talk about that and take a look at the Eastern Conference standings after this here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Everybody at some point or another has an opportunity to get something off their chest, whether it's big or small. Things can start to get to you, and it's important to just feel comfortable to communicate those things to somebody, especially somebody who's unbiased about your life. Like we might all have friends or acquaintances that were, even at work, you can always kvetch to a coworker about your boss or, having to stay late or something like that. But they already have a biased perspective. This is a therapist. If you're looking for a sounding board, if you're looking to actually talk to somebody who might give you some constructive input on what you might be dealing with or thinking about, then you're looking to try therapy, and BetterHelp is the option for you. Therapy can be different for everybody, and most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports teams and what's going on in the world of sports. And it's important to get these things off your chest every once in a while. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. And if you have to switch therapists for whatever reason, then it's easy to do so. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnBA and you get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. Before we get to the East standings and where the Heat rank now, Jaime Jaquez Jr., it had been a rough 10 games, basically, since he kind of came back from the groin injury. The shooting percentage has been way down. Points per game has been down. He just hasn't really looked like himself. He had missed, and I have the stat here somewhere, 4 of his 27 shots from three-point range in his last 10 games. Just couldn't make a three, and kind of got off to a slow start in this one. And here's something I noticed. DeLon Wright, third quarter, drive and kick, I'm sorry, second
Yes.
quarter. Second quarter? No,
No,
it was
third
the third quarter.
quarter.
It was
Yeah.
the third quarter.
Yeah.
DeLon Wright, left side of the floor, drive and kick.
Draws a double.
Draws a double.
Finds Jaime in the corner,
off
yeah.
of Jaime on his strong side corner. Jaime just kicks it out to him. Easy pass, but did the job, right? Just did the job. And Jaime got the wide open corner three, drained it, and what happened? Took off from there. 13 points in the third quarter for Jaime Jaquez. The big shots in the fourth quarter. He ends up finishing the game with 26 points, which was just behind Bam's 28 points for the team high. 26 points for Jaime on 12 of 17 shooting, 4 rebounds, a couple assists, 3 steals, and a couple where he just snatched the ball. He's just like, give me that.
Yes.
Just snatched it from the hands of whatever Sacramento King player he was torturizing in that moment. But DeLon Wright, credit. Like, dude, you got Jaime Jaquez going again. If that's all he does in a Heat uniform, then the money was well spent, and he's going to do way more than that too. So
I do want to talk about DeLon, but I echo exactly what you're saying about Jaime because he had a fantastic game. He looked much more comfortable, much more fluid. It was a footwork masterclass. He had that turnaround jumper going early too, like posting him up and watching him go to work. He had a spin move, had one possession there. I think even we're speaking of DeLon Wright, but Darrell Wright tweeting about.
yeah,
I didn't know Jaime was like that. That's been pretty funny for him to tweet that out. Because again, if you haven't watched Jaime, you're watching him now, especially if you're out on the West Coast and you don't get the opportunity to see a lot of Heat basketball. He's been phenomenal, and he just had a game at another level today. He was very aggressive, looking for a shot. I mentioned in yesterday's podcast that I thought Jaime needed to step up with Jimmy out of the lineup tonight against the Kings, and he certainly did a fantastic job of stepping up. Did a great job defensively, but also some key buckets down the stretch. Nice passing, just a great overall game for him.
Yeah. So is he back? We'll see. But I liked how he was playing before. The rebounding was starting to amp up. He talked about this with you at All-Star break, and it just felt like from coming out of that groin injury, he was starting to athletically get to where he wanted to be. And a big game like this, that was really important for him to step up with just, okay, it's one thing to look good athletically, but at some point we needed the production from him. We got that production, obviously, from him tonight. But
what do you think of DeLon's first showing? He gets the starting nod there with no Tyler Herro, a late scratch, and whose availability is in question for Tuesday night's game against the Portland Trailblazers. He's got that.
Didn't play at all in New Orleans as they're trying to ease him in. He played 30, but he had to play 35 minutes tonight. I thought it was solid. 13 points, 5 assists, a couple of steals, very fitting. Everything that we kept talking about. This guy is going to be able to get steals. He's going to be able to jump passing lanes. He's going to work within Miami's sort of disruptive defense and all those things. And very fittingly, his first Miami Heat bucket came off of his first Miami Heat steal, right?
Yep.
And I love that. And so I thought he was really solid. And I think he's only going to get better. Went 2 for 4 from 3-point range, which is very refreshing. This guy's going to be able to make open. This guy's going to be able to make open threes. Career 35% shooter, but has never played on a team like this Miami Heat team where those threes are going to be open for him in a way that they've never been open for him before. And so I thought he was great. I thought he did exactly what he had to do. He's not going to be a remarkable player. He's not going to be sensational. He's not going to be scoring 20 a game. But if he does this every game and you got him for free, that's a huge win. You know what I mean? Like that's what I mean.
No doubt.
That's what his job is.
A bit of a gamble, I think, on defense at times. Like he's clearly looking to poke the ball free and force a turnover that way, and so that kind of puts him out of position on occasion. Kind of reminds me a little bit, honestly, of Josh in that sense. Josh tries a little bit slight and gets out of position a little bit because they can't hold up against a bigger ball handler or something like that. So if you can force a turnover and leads to easy transition bucket in offense, that you'll do that every time. And I saw that from DeLon on occasion, but I think he's a little bit more stout, perhaps. And those threes
fights over the
huge.
Screen's a little bit better,
Yes,
but Josh is probably
point.
Josh is a little bit more of a diversified offensive player than DeLon is,
Yes.
and so fortunately for Miami, they got both of them. All right, let's look at the Eastern Conference standings. So the Heat got a break when the Pacers lost to the Toronto Raptors on Monday night because the Heat won in Sacramento. They moved to 6th place in the Eastern Conference, right? They are now percentage points ahead of Indiana. Miami at 32-25 have a winning percentage of 56.1%. Indiana drops to 33-26. Their win percentage is 55.9%. So we're literally talking about a couple of decimal points here of a difference. But importantly, the Pacers are a game back of Miami in that loss column. and the Heat have one of the easiest schedules remaining in the East, while the Pacers have kind of like one of the most average schedules left in the East. Not the hardest one, but not an easy one either. And they seem to be kind of going down. They've where Miami seems to be trending up. Unfortunately for the Heat, the Knicks got a big win.
They stole a big win.
They did. I know you're going to talk about this. We only have a couple minutes left here. You're going to talk about this at length on the Locked On NBA show with Matt Moore.
Right.
But they could have gained some ground on the fourth place Knicks if not for a terrible non-call at the end of that Knicks Pistons game that cost the Pistons possession of the ball with seconds left and a chance to either take the lead or tie. Just a weird Dante DiVincenzo after a loose ball. Asar Thompson seemed to have it. Dante DiVincenzo just trains right into his legs. No call. It was right in front of the official. Monty Williams just going off on the officials during his post-game media conference. Took no questions. Was about a 2-minute statement and then just left. And I don't blame him because it was a terrible call. And look, the Knicks are pretty far ahead of the Heat right now. They're 2.5 games up on the Heat as we're sitting here talking. But if it gets really close by the end of the season, I know that Heat fans are going to look back at that game, and if it's like a tiebreaker scenario between the Heat and the Knicks, they're like, the officials gave the Knicks maybe the 4th or 5th seed or whatever seed that is that we're talking about. I don't necessarily want to do that here. David, do you have any words on this before we kind of get to the bigger picture?
No, I just think Miami's in charge of their own destiny, right? I mean, 25 games left on their season. What's a realistic expectation for them to be able to climb into the top 4? 20-5? Like that seems really difficult as a goal, but I think that's where they kind of, I mean, that's a 50-win team. Like, I don't know that anybody really projected this team to be a 50-win team at the start of the season, but it's possible. I mean, the way they're playing of late, we don't want to overstate things, but, they're trending in the right direction. This was a really shorthanded team, and they played extremely well tonight. Their defense has been exceptional. You're getting the contributions, from a full cast of players. I don't know. I could see that being the goal. I don't know how realistic that is, but it's possible.
Sure, it's possible. And like I said on the other show, I don't know how much it matters. I just think that this team, like the goal has been accomplished, at least for today. Get out of the play-in tournament, right? Whether or not, I don't know that this team needs home court advantage in the first round. I really don't. I don't think it matters.
No, it doesn't.
This team's really good on the road.
Yes.
It just stay out of the play-in. And so I know that the Knicks loss is loud and a lot of people are angry and upset about it, but overall, you got a good break with the Pacers losing against the Raptors and then you moving into 6th place, and you nailed it. The Heat are in control of their own destiny now. You got 25 games left. Don't screw it up, I guess. Jimmy Butler will be back for Tuesday night's game. On Tuesday, Tyler Herro could be back. Terry Rozier could be back. Nikola Jovic will be back from that 1-game suspension as well. And we will be back with another recap after a late night game in Toronto, Tuesday night in Portland. But for now, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube and follow us on your podcast app.